Hey there, listeners. Welcome to Project Zero, where we hear about the journeys of some of the best project leaders in the game. My name's Alex Tuck, and I'm the host. And I'm here with my friend, VP of Strategic Programs and Development at M2 Orthopedics and founder of KCPM Health, Tim Kephart. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about all your Project Zero woes.
Yeah, it's a wild story. I learned a lot for sure.
All right, Tim, let's start. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at M2 and KCPM.
Yeah, so a kind of career healthcare person, started right out of college in healthcare. I built my career there, kind of fell into project management on accident, which is not super uncommon, I found out. But right now, my current role for M2 Orthopedics, we're an orthopedic management service organization. So we basically help independent practices manage the complexity and landscape of today's healthcare systems and stay independent and grow in those marketplaces. So I basically run a lot of our capital growth. So really, if there's a big dollar sign attached to it or a lot of resource planning attached to those types of growth efforts, then I'm overseeing that, kind of looking at it from a global project management and strategic planning perspective, and helping us kind of get to that execution. So a lot of things from like new clinic openings or electronic medical records, implementations, stuff like that. And then actually during my journey at M2, had the opportunity to start KCPM as well. And so very similar work there with KCPM and some independent clients going through some of those same challenges, really trying to grow or stay independent in a very complex environment, trying to take on new partners or open new locations or going through technology transitions. And so we help them, kind of create that roadmap and then go through that execution.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. That's great that you were able to start KCPM while you're at M2,
Yeah.
keep beating both sides, and I'm sure that
Yeah.
was easy. You weren't busy at
Yes.
all.
Yeah. It certainly keeps you busy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. So let's talk about how you got started with project management. What was your first gig in project management?
Yeah. So my first gig was really not really a project management gig, but they labeled it that, which was just really, we were starting a new kind of service line and needed somebody to stick the title of a project manager to, but I was more like a functional person in that role and then just try to like drive traffic. But I was working for a large Fortune 500 medical staffing firm, and we were moving into kind of a new area for nurse practitioners or more advanced nurses and kind of long-term placements and short-term placements. And they'd never done that before, so I got to be the guinea pig and kind of run and create the workflow of how to do that and how we're tracking it, all the fun things. So luckily, I didn't get stuck there too long. I was actually at grad school at the time, and then after I graduated, had applied for like a real project manager role and in an organization here in Kansas City where I'm at now, real progressive organization, really trying to like very position focused group, big on technology and growth development. So they're doing some really innovative stuff. But the real challenge was one, it was my first like true project management role. So I didn't know what I didn't know. And I wasn't a, traditionally trained PM by that point either. And they just started a global PMO at that organization. So they had a leader in there that was real strong, but not politically aligned with some of the leadership as well. So kind of punching out the back foot, with that, maybe a little mistrust or about what the PMO is doing, and why are you up in my business type of thing. Trying to create accountability doesn't always go over well with senior leaders that are used to a lot of autonomy, and so that was a real challenge in that first role, and just kind of getting into that new organization, which was a minefield. So that was my first real project management role, and it was definitely trial by fire.
I can only imagine. So did you do grad school right after undergraduate?
No, actually, so I went to the University of Missouri, wrestled there for a while, and then just took a consulting job at that Fortune 500 company. They're called, I think they were actually rebranded since then. They were called Maxim Healthcare, big national firm that they went out and did like temp staffing for nursing. We ran, like, our division ran the permanent physician side of the business. So we went out and worked with a lot of rural hospitals and academic medical centers, which was kind of my niche, finding specific doctors for their programs, helping them develop those programs and bring in the right people for either research or clinical expertise, that kind of thing. So that was my first role. And then that was a very difficult job. So I went back to grad school to get my master's in health administration and then transitioned to the company's actually now called Value Health, transitioned to them and then beyond that. So
Interesting. What did you do for undergrad? What were you studying there?
I was a ed major. Yeah, it's kind of strange how life works out. I was going to be a business marketing education teacher and wrestling coach, and just life events changed that. So I ended up getting this job. Gosh, I was 23. I got this job and probably underqualified for it for sure, but managed to make that work out for about 7 or 8 years before going back to grad school. So that one was also a trial by fire, very much so. And it
Oh
had a
my,
huge turnover rate too. So like we would fire 3 or 4 people a month and bring in new folks. And so I don't know how I survived all that time, but long enough I could get through grad school.
yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of folks, especially project managers, sometimes, especially the good ones, they get put in these positions where probably don't belong. You don't belong technically,
Yeah.
right? Like on paper, it doesn't make sense that you get the opportunity, but you're fortunate enough to get that opportunity. And then you learn a heck of a lot.
Yeah. No, and I think that's like the great filter effect of good PMs. It's like bad PMs don't last very long because it's such a visible position. And if you're underperforming, not bringing value, it's pretty easy to get rid of you. So I think that's one of the reasons that you find such strong people in project management, good leaders and intelligent folks, is because they get filtered out real quick.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Cool. Awesome. So let's jump into it. I want to hear about your project zero. Can you tell us about
Yeah.
that first project that like you really figured stuff out, or you made a bunch of mistakes and, and figured it
Yeah.
out afterwards?
Way more mistakes. So as I transitioned to that more formal PM role, one of the projects I got put onto is just because of some of the work I had done in grad school around like value-based healthcare. I did my graduate thesis on it and caught the eye of one of the senior leaders at this organization, my passion for that. And that was exactly one of the projects that we're working on, was kind of trying to tackle bringing value into healthcare, not just what we call fee for service. You go in, see your doctor, and they send you a bill, but more of a global perspective of taking care of folks for a fixed price. Bringing accountability back to the providers to bring good care. So I got brought into that project and it really ramped up fairly quickly. And actually the leader there, he's actually the CEO of M2, Marshall Marin. He went out and was able to pitch this to an external venture fund. And we got kind of co-funded by the parent company and this VC firm and go out independently and do this. So I was in charge of project management and development for some of our programs and then really for our new sites. So we were building our first center in Austin, Texas, ground up surgery center. So we really got to do everything from the design and planning, onboarding an architect and a contractor, all the vendors required to make this happen, all the way to getting it licensed and up and running and operating. And it took, I don't know, it was about 14-month project and it was full of twists and turns. We had a great plan going into it. But one of the real takeaways of that is no plan survives the first assault. And like it, you talk about replanning and replanning and replanning and, adjusting timelines, adjusting resources, adjusting funding. We did a lot of that. One of the major challenges was we kind of started this thing with the idea that we got to get out of the gate because we're basically a startup at that point and we're trying to basically do proof of concept. And so speed to market was really important. Well, when you're building kind of a very specific facility and you have a huge constraint on time, like then that creates all the other constraints on quality and budget, right?
Hmm.
And so we didn't have our funding figured out for the project yet. So we were basically shoestringing it along. And one of the major challenges of this whole project was like we would get to somewhere and be like, well, we need to pay this person. We're like, well, we're still trying to figure that out. I'm like, guys, we have to pay people on time or early if possible to keep them motivated on the project. I remember one of the just disaster moments was the contractor actually called me middle of the day and hair on fire, just chewing me up and down, and he hadn't been paid. And I put this on our risk log and let everybody know, okay, this isn't something that we need to let happen. We need to make these payments on time. Lo and behold, we didn't. And he called and said, guess what? Nobody's showing up to work tomorrow. We're halting the project until we get paid. Oh. And I'm like, oh boy. So then, as a good project manager does, you get on the phone and start escalating these types of things. So making a call to the CFO, making a call to the CEO, letting him know, okay, we got a major problem here. So that was a real fun one, real stressful day for me for sure. Luckily, the happy ending was we expedited the check and somehow found the funds to get him trued up and got the project back on track. But this is a really complex project because not to get too technical with it, but we were shooting a gap from a healthcare regulatory perspective. We weren't licensing the facility under the normal guidelines. So we were meeting with the city, we were meeting with the state, we were meeting with the physicians and the building owner, constantly trying to really work out all these kind of nuances where we're in a little bit of a gray area from a regulatory perspective. And so we just had throughout this whole project these huge risks and potential like landmines where the city could come down and say, yeah, you can't do that. Or the state may come and say, well, the city might let you do that, but we're not going to let you do that. Or we were going to run into funding issues, or our partners were fairly new. They were really down our throats about updates and progress, and we were trying to keep them happy. And so it was definitely the hot seat for sure. And we hadn't created kind of project standards at that point either. So we were trying to create standardized reporting and standardized risks and issues logs, and in an environment where we're very much like startup. And anybody that's worked in a startup environment probably knows like the people that go to work for a startup aren't like super structured people. They don't love like regulations. They don't love rules just to have rules. They want to go fast and hard and break things. I'm like, well, when it was like a $9 or $10 million project. I'm like, when you got that much time and the success of the business riding on, getting this thing done and out in the market, like fast and loose is not the way to do it. So there was a lot of even internal conflict between our team about kind of going super fast and breaking things versus, hey, we don't want to step on a landmine either. So there was a lot of dynamics. And just, I think one of the bigger lessons for me career wise was just learning how to navigate all the different stakeholders. And you talk about learning about stakeholder management. That was that was a great crash course because we had our parent company leadership. They all wanted to be part of the project because that's part of what they had done as a core business. So we were trying to fend them off and say, no, we don't want your help because maybe worried about what that would mean or the time that it would take or kind of loss of control. We had new venture funder in the mix. It's pretty dynamic and a really interesting guy, but dealing with their leadership team and what help they wanted to bring versus didn't want to bring was really interesting. And then we had physicians who were investor. They're investing in that specific location, almost like a franchise. And they all wanted to be part of the thing. They wanted to get their spouses involved in the design and the furniture colors and things like that. And so kind of, keeping them like at bay. And then you had all the regulatory, and we had the good contractor, but they were big and difficult to work with, and great architect, but again, all those politics internally. So it was a real balancing act, trying to keep everybody happy, informed, and just keeping everybody on the same boat.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's such a cool story. I mean, that's a tough one for it to be like one of your first real big projects. I mean, I touch construction projects at all here because they're completely different than everything else. So not only are you rolling out, like building out a building, but you're also thinking about all of the like medical devices that you're putting in there and the software and everything. It's wild.
Yeah, and that was one aspect of it. Like the physical development was one aspect of this project, but the other was all the internal like operational functions that had to be ready day one when we opened this place. So we had basically a project within a project of like actually launching this business, which included we developed our own ground up electronic medical record. So there was running we had a great technical team and a CTO and whatnot was kind of running the ins and outs of that, but the timing and testing and the launch of that all had to integrate with the opening of this facility. We also had like all the normal operations things like hiring staff and HR functions and payroll and internal technology scaling. So there was all the ins and outs of the business that had to be there day one, along with timing all that out for the actual like opening. And as the development person, that was my role as well, to make sure that all these pieces lined up and fit in and we're all running on the same timeline. That was super difficult too, because as when you've and you and I have both done a lot of technology projects as well, as those things are fairly iterative and like trying to time a hard launch with a product development that's run on agile is like really hard. It's like trying to grasp smoke because you're speaking to technical teams and product managers that are not used to running waterfall projects and having a hard fixed launch date. They're like, the product will be done when it's done. And I'm like, it's got to be done the first day because we have to use it the first day. And it has to be like at an MVP plus level, minimally viable product plus level day one. And so just timing all that internal politics within the company and then all the other external stakeholders was a real challenge.
Oh my God. That's
It's probably still to this day one of my toughest projects. And I'm hoping like praying that it will continue to be because that one was a tough one.
But it's awesome though, because I mean, not a lot of folks have that kind of experience of being able to take everything soup to nuts, right? That's the secret sauce that you can bring
Right.
for clients. So that's awesome. Yeah, and as someone who has been my client twice now, I can vouch for Tim's advocacy to get us paid on time all the time.
Yeah, it seems to help. Yeah, people seem to like to get paid
That I
for
would
the
have
work.
stopped work on you ever, but I do appreciate it.
Plug for Alex. He's been fantastic to work with every time. So keep going back.
That's awesome. All right, let's talk a little bit about advice, right? Lessons, mindset,
Yeah.
growth. What's the number one skill that you think a project manager needs, and why do you think that's the most important?
Yeah, I thinking a lot about this, especially as I kind of launched the consulting side of this and thinking about where like what my personal strengths are and like what the strengths of like other folks I want to bring into the business are is really like willingness to learn and being like easy to work with and communicating well. And I think those things all go hand in hand. I think a lot of younger project managers and people that I mentor grad students from the University of Missouri and elsewhere. And when they get into project management or they're interested in it, they have this perception like they have to know everything about the thing that they're going to manage. And I'm like, no, that's not the case. Like, if you're going to be a IT focused project manager, you don't need to learn how to code. Like, does it help? Absolutely. I'm learning Python right now. It helps, but you don't have to be the subject matter expert. And I think in that scenario, I was explaining like I felt like I had to know everything about everything. Well, then that project was so broad and so complex. So at one point, I'm like, I can't know everything about everything. I'm a pretty curious person, but I can't get 20 years of construction experience like during this project. And that's why I have a great project manager from the contractor. And I don't know everything about architecture or the compliance side of opening up healthcare business. So you have to identify and be humble enough to defer to those experts, but know enough that you can speak their language. Yeah, I recently took over kind of helping develop our marketing here at M2, and I'm not a marketing expert. I know a lot about marketing, but I don't know as much as the people that are working on it diligently. But I know how to speak their language and I know when they say something like what they mean. So I can translate it. And I can translate it in the framework of the overarching goal of what we're trying to do, like either the project or like the program development. And so keeping that in mind, like I think is really important because I think a lot of younger folks either shy away or they get really nervous or it just causes them more stress when they don't know as much as the people they're talking to because they feel that responsibility. So I'm the project manager. I should know everything about everything. And that's not the case.
No, just
Go ahead.
a point on that, Tim. Like it's really interesting because I think a lot of stakeholder, like executive leadership, also needs to understand that a PM isn't going to know everything. They shouldn't, and it
Yeah.
actually hurts the project if that person gets too in the weeds, right? Because then they
Right.
can't facilitate. They're focused on learning the stuff, right? You just have to know just enough to be able to repeat things back to people
Mhm.
and keep up with the conversation.
And I always use when talking to stakeholders about the project management role or executive oversight of projects, I talk a lot about it. I actually developed this language in that first project because it was so complicated and I didn't know everything about everything. I was like, my job is air traffic control. I'm not a pilot. I'm not the guy that runs the gate. I'm not I'm not loading the bags. I'm not doing ticketing. My job is to make sure that the planes land and take off on time. Now, that's why we have pilots. That's why we have stewards and stewardesses. That's why we have baggage people. Like those are the people doing the execution and they know what they're doing. If we don't have the right people flying the plane, well, then maybe we need to address that, right? But that's not my job. Is to is to land the plane. It's just to make sure that they're being timed correctly. And I think positioning it that way when you're talking to like executive leaders about your role specifically and what value you bring, that kind of explanation I think helps. And there's probably other analogies that may be even better than that. That's just the one I've kind of fallen into, but making sure that they don't have this expectation that you know everything about everything, because that's just going to set you and them up for failure.
I love that analogy. And I think it explains it perfectly, right? I'm going to steal that one, start using it a little bit
Go for
more.
it. Go for it.
Cool. So this is always an interesting question that I ask. Like, how do you define success in a project, right? And is that definition different than earlier in your career?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of, especially early in my career, one of the things I stressed about a lot was just like this perfection within a project. You do all this time planning and meeting with all the subject matter experts and decomposing a project down to its finite and trying to hold on timelines. And then that first, ooh, you got a late deliverable. Ooh, we had to bump our timeline. Like you take that very personally. And I remember thinking like, gosh, I failed because we had a rain delay for 2 weeks and like things that are completely out of my control. And then we had to adjust the timeline. And I felt like, oh, we're behind schedule. So that's on me. I found later in my career that's not the way to define success, especially personally, because it'll drive you crazy and you'll end up either quitting project management or strategic planning altogether because nothing ever goes according to plan. No plan is, or a plan is better than no plan, but don't expect that plan to come to fruition exactly how you did it. I think I said no plan survives first encounter with the enemy, or like Tyson used to say, everybody's got to play until you get punched in the mouth. And I learned along the way, especially in those first chaotic projects, is like project management isn't about perfection from you hit A and you hit this next milestone, you hit this next milestone, and so on and so on. For it's about getting to the finish line with in a position that you can be successful moving forward, right? Whatever that might mean. That's whether it's a product launch or a merger or opening up a new business or location. It's about creating enough value so that day one and then year one, that business or that product or that client is in a position to be successful long term versus, oh, we hit budget, we hit the deadline, we hit all our quality metrics. Like those things are aspirational. Yeah, in an ideal world, like those you're gonna hit the trifecta of that every time on every project, but that is just not reality. There's so many things out of your control. People go on sick leave or tariffs come into place or it rains for 2 months in Texas where it never rains. Like things that are just completely out of your control will find their ways. It's Murphy comes into play and then you just have to readjust. And I think that's also part of selling your stakeholders isn't creating this, oh, we got this great plan and we're going to execute it perfectly. It's about, hey, we got a great plan. We know what to look for. When it happens, we have contingencies, and here's how we're going to try to mitigate the damage. That's a different message. And I think it provides more value and more realistic value to your stakeholders. It's just like getting on getting on a call with your shareholders, right? Not all the news is good. And sometimes you have to deliver news that is going to drop your stock price, but it's real and it's accurate and it's based on reality versus we're selling that, oh, everything's all blue sky, right? You have to get comfortable with that.
Yeah. The value piece that you talk about, that's what I try to drive home with RPMs. It's let's make sure we all have the same definition of what the value is that we want to create and let's actually execute to that, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, who the heck can predict like exactly how long it's gonna take to build a $10 million facility,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
literally impossible. Like, it's impossible to predict it exactly. Maybe with AI someday, like we'll get closer, but still that we're all human and like stuff happens. So
Yeah, I mean, if we were that good, we should all be trading stock and versus being PMs.
that's right.
And you and I have worked on a project where we're like, hey, we thought we were killing it, and then all of a sudden it's like internal politics change, and then it's the perception of the value changed along with it,
Right.
and those are things you can't predict. And if you beat yourself up over it, then again, you're gonna have a very short career in project management.
That's right. All right, cool. Speed round time. I'm gonna give you a couple of different things, and you need to tell me which one you would use in the context of project management. You can also pick something else too. All right. Slack, email, text, or phone call.
I do like Slack a lot. We use Slack, but I am big on pick up the phone. I think, and I get into this as well, and I try to urge myself out to it's too easy to just send out a quick text or Slack or whatever it is. And the value of picking up the phone, calling somebody, having a conversation with them, even in today's busy world, is really valuable. And I look at projects where I've done really well. It's because I consistently picked up the phone or I flew out to meet them. I created a relationship with those either resources or stakeholders so that there was a lot of trust and honest communication and opportunity to be like, dude, what the heck's going on? Conversations and not always fun, but they were genuine and they were transparent versus, hey, things are going as planned over Slack. Right. So especially for younger folks, I know it's not preached a lot, but pick up the phone, call them or go have coffee, fly out to meet them, whatever it is, face to face or over the phone is much more valuable.
Yeah. And as an elder millennial and someone that's raising younger kids, text first before you call. But
Yeah, and that's always it seems
I,
always to be appreciated nowadays, but yeah, do that.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But it's a social thing that we have to figure out as new people are coming into the workforce, right? You
Yeah.
have to figure out how to communicate with people. But I love picking up the phone call. Cool. Agile or waterfall?
I think it just depends on the type of project. So I don't think there's one size fits all. Just don't do agile, which is basically the worst of both. I've tried that before and honestly just trial by error, whatever, trial by whatever. I learned not to do that by trying it. And for specific types of projects, yeah, I love agile. I think it's great. I'm all about bringing quick value to certain types of projects. But when you're looking at these larger longitudinal multi-year projects where you have like hard dependencies throughout, you just have to go back to waterfall.
Awesome. Cool. Speed or perfection?
I struggle with this one because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist and I get dinged on, "Hey, we need to do something quick." And I'm like, "Oh, but I want it to be good too." I think there is a little bit of a middle ground there where if you can set the expectation that like, "Hey, we're gonna bring value quickly," but then ultimately we're looking for something that's fairly refined. And so it's this trade-off of finding bring value quickly. Like I'm big on MVP type scenarios, even with our like facilities, like we'll build out other sections if we have to, like later, if we get the doors open quicker, or if it's an EMR implementation, something like that. We'll just get that core functionality. We'll add this other thing post launch. Cause I do see you got to bring value quick.
Yeah, I like that. I think every PM that I ask says almost some version of that. Every good PM is like, geez, I really like really good quality, but I do appreciate the getting to value as quickly as possible too, right? Because
Yeah.
you can't have projects go on forever. They cost a lot of money. Cool. How about favorite PM tool?
I was an early adapter on Smartsheet, so I've gotten pretty comfortable with it. I'm trying to branch out and get more familiar with others, but I've been pretty heavily reliant on it over the last couple businesses that I've worked with. A great tool, easy to work with. I know getting into ClickUp as well and some others, but it's honestly anything, and I hate to say it, but anything but MS Project is fine. I'd rather have no project tool than MS Project, but it's good that we have a plethora of good tools.
That's awesome. So I don't have to ask my next question, which is what is the worst PM tool?
And that
What's
was last.
what's funny is this is such a polarizing set of questions because you either have people that say the best PM tool is Microsoft
Yeah,
Project or the worst
no,
is Microsoft Project. I think it really does depend on, what project are you running, right? And
yeah.
like what are you trying to achieve? But the biggest criticism of it is that no one else can access it, right? Like even the
Right.
online version is like a pain in the butt.
Exactly. Just it's got to be accessible, and I like to recruit people into projects to be a part of them. So I'm a big pull guy versus push on project management. Like I want everybody to be in the project plan. I don't want to hold it and have it be this little secret plan that only Tim can see. I want everybody to see it. I want to see things that are behind. I want a complete transparency of it. I think it creates a lot more accountability, and then it's not just, well, Tim makes me do this stuff because he's got this little secret sheet of time, dates and things that have to happen. It's like, no, this is our project plan, and I'm big on that. It's like this is our project, not my project. This is our project because I've never been in an organization where the PM had direct control over the resources. It's always been matrix at best. And so I think I've developed a lot of pull strategy and try to get people bought into projects versus running them myself.
I like that. I like that a lot. Cool. I think we got a lot of really cool insights, a lot of stuff that folks that listeners can think about as they think about their next steps in their career. How
Yeah.
can people get in contact with you?
Yeah. So you can reach me at tim@kcpmhealth.com. That's our website. I'm happy to answer any calls and tell you more about my career and experience if you need.
Awesome. Well, I think
Yeah.
that's it, Tim. Thanks. That was fun.
Yeah. It was a great time. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And thanks to everyone who joined us today for Project Zero. Be sure to subscribe to Project Zero wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll catch you next time with another great project leader story. All right. Thanks again, Tim.